All right, for today's video, we are starting a new series called Queer Things We've Been Loving Lately. We've been doing this on our Instagram stories every week for Sunday, and it's been so much fun that we thought we would bring it to YouTube.
Welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, I'm Steph.
I'm Katie. Little Theo is
down here.
Do you want to say hi?
Hi. We are a married lesbian couple from Vancouver, Canada, and the creators of Let's See the World.
So yes, we've been doing this on our Instagram stories every week and sharing just like the fun, podcasts, TV shows, music, anything queer we've been loving that week. So we thought we would bring it to YouTube. Maybe this is something we'll do every few months, a few times a year. I don't know, we'll see. And we'll just share all the queer stuff we've been loving lately. So right now we're going to talk about everything kind of this year so far.
Yeah.
Anything queer in 2022 that we've really been digging, and we're going to share it with you. So hopefully you can find some great recommendations.
To kick things off, we are going to talk about music. So luckily there are a lot of queer artists out there, and we've been loving a lot of them. One in particular that we've gotten into is Girl in Red. Her album came out last spring, but we've definitely been listening to it a little bit more lately, and we've really been loving it. It's some really great music.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with it. I feel like I didn't know much about her until you kind of mentioned it, and then when I started listening to music, I was like, oh, this is her. Oh, this is her too. Oh, this is her. And just all the songs we've been loving lately are all her. So highly recommend, and it's very queer.
Yeah, very queer. And actually, last year it kind of became a bit of a thing to say, do you listen to Girl in Red? And that was kind of a question of like, are you queer? So that kind of became a thing for like queer women to ask.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Very cute.
So that's a fun one.
Second on that list for music is Tegan and Sarah. Obviously,
Classic.
We're obsessed with them. Yeah, classic. We've always loved them.
And they're Canadian.
Yes, they're Canadian, which I love. One of them lives in Vancouver, I think.
Yeah, we've actually walked by Tegan before in the city, which was actually really fun because we were holding hands, and then she walked by with her partner, and we kind of had this glance moment.
Yeah.
And then I looked back and they started holding hands. It was just like such a special queer moment, and the fact that it was Tegan from Tegan and Sarah was just like
I love it. I remember that. That was a long time ago, and we got past them, and then you were like, do you know who that was? And I was like, no, what? Yeah.
Fun moment. So Tegan, if you're watching, hi. We're neighbors.
Yeah, but obviously all their albums are amazing, and their newest album called Still Jealous is awesome. We've had it on repeat, so highly recommend.
Yeah, so it is actually a remake of So Jealous, which is super fun because that's a great album.
Yeah.
And what they did was kind of cool. Sarah covered all of Tegan's songs, and Tegan covered all of Sarah's songs.
I love that.
So they all have like a unique twist to them, and it's just a super fun listen.
Yeah, it's cute. Their music is great. We played one of their songs at our wedding, actually, right when we kissed.
Yep. Another queer artist that we have been loving lately, and honestly just loving always, is Janelle Monáe, of course. Her music is just like our go-to. Dirty Computer is probably one of our favorite albums.
So good.
And it's not new, but it's just like
we
always...
keep coming back to it.
Yeah.
It's just, it's always a good go-to. I love her so much.
And super queer.
Yeah. And last but not least is Brandi Carlile. I feel like I'm way late to the party, but I've like just discovered her. We saw her on an award show or something last year. It was
probably the Grammys. She had a ton of Grammy nominations last year, and that's, I think, really when she kind of blew up.
Yeah.
I think I had heard of her before that, but she really kind of went mainstream, I guess, last year.
Which is cool, because she's a bit older, too. Mm-hmm. I think she's been around for a while, like, on the music scene. But I watched that performance, and I was like, who is this? She seems gay. Like, who is this?
Yeah.
Like, she's obviously queer. And then I was Googling, and I was like, oh, everyone knows who this is.
And everyone knows she's queer.
I'm way late to the party. Yeah, she's been, openly gay. Yeah. Anyways, but I'm really into it. Not typically, the type of music we would normally
not as much,
but I just love that she's cool and she's queer. And
she is very cool, and she has a really cool story. I listened to her be interviewed by Hillary Clinton on Hillary Clinton's podcast, and she's, got a really interesting story. So if you want a little bit more background on Brandi Carlile, definitely listen to that podcast. It's a good episode.
Right, and very relevant for anyone who kind of is queer and maybe comes from the church or has some religious trauma around coming out. Very relevant and interesting, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So on the topic of podcasts, that is actually our next category. And the first podcast we want to talk about is the Pants podcast with Leisha Haley and Kate Menig.
Yes, from the L Word, if you know. Their podcast is hilarious. They do both interviews and also recap episodes. So recapping like classic L Word. They've done all of season 1, I guess.
I think season 1, and maybe they're on to season 2 now. But
right, and I think they plan to do like the whole thing, which is really fun. The L Word was filmed here in Vancouver, so it's really funny listening to them talk about like living here and filming here,
and mostly getting things wrong, like
pronouncing
like the milk, like the milk and honey bar, which was honey and lotus, but and just
calling Robson Street. It's so funny. Yeah, but it's a good listen. They're just really hilarious.
They're like best friends in real life, and it's just like being a fly on the wall, just hanging out with them.
Yeah, it's a bit chaotic at times.
It's pretty silly, but it's fun.
Listen. Yeah, we've done it on like road trips and stuff. When you have long drives, it's a good listen. So highly recommend, especially if you're an L Word. Well, only if you're an L Word fan. If you're not, I feel like you wouldn't really get it.
And if you're into L Word podcasts,
very niche. This is a very niche.
There are a lot of L Word podcasts, or like there's a lot of L Word content. I think there's more. I haven't listened to any other ones, but I think there's also just like whole websites devoted to like recaps and breaking down the episodes and stuff. I mean, the L Word was a big deal.
It's a moment.
Still is a big deal. But anyway, so if you are into L Word podcast, To L and Back, it's an auto-straddle podcast, and their recaps it's actually really fun to listen to the Pants pod and also To L and Back, because the auto-straddle one really digs deep and like breaks things down in a way that, I don't know, Kate Menig and Leisha Haley just kind of have some fun with it, but like I feel like they talk about real stuff a little bit more on it's still very funny,
but they can kind of pick it apart a bit more, having not like been involved.
And also just kind of how like early seasons were obviously very problematic with like representation and things like that, and they definitely
get into that. It was a product of its time, obviously, but I feel like we can learn a lot kind of going back and looking at it with a critical eye. So that's cool.
To L and Back also just brings on more like diverse voices to talk about things like Latina representation and stuff like that. So instead of just having like two white ladies talk about it, it is a little bit more of like
more perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. Do they do Generation Q as well?
Yeah, To L and Back is also, I think they're completely up to date. So they've done all seasons of the original L Word, and they're caught up with.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah, that's cool. And then they do Generation Q as well. And Generation Q is coming back for season 3. It's officially been renewed, so that means more episodes, more future podcasts to listen to.
Yeah,
that's fun. The next podcast we've been loving lately is called Cruising, the Cruising Pod. It's all about the last lesbian bars in the United States, which is really cool. It's such a topic that's relevant in terms of like lesbian spaces disappearing. And there used to be like hundreds of lesbian bars in the US, and now it's down to like less than 20 or something. And these 3 queer women go and do this like epic road trip and visit them all and like get the stories, and it's so cool. I can't wait to listen to the rest of them, because it's like such an interesting story.
Yeah, totally. It's also giving us all these ideas of like where we want to go and places we want to visit. We've been to a few of them. We've been to ones in New York and Seattle, and we definitely want to make sure we visit the other ones
before they disappear,
because they might. And super interesting listen.
Yeah, highly recommend.
Another podcast that is super fun and hilarious is We're Having Gay Sex. So this one is a podcast by Ashley Gavin, who's a comedian and hilarious. She brings on a guest every week, and they discuss gay sex. And it's usually like silly stories or just embarrassing stories or just fun. I don't know.
That's fun.
They're hilarious. I discovered this podcast because of a Broadway performer that we know of. She was a guest on there, and she's hilarious. And she's actually been on there twice, Izzy McCullough. So definitely listen to those episodes. They're hilarious. And they're just like really fun and really funny. So
Yeah,
their nice little break from reality. And
right. I feel like every week when we give our recommendations for the week and then we ask other people like, what queer things have you been loving? Someone always recommends this podcast. So it's definitely a funny one. So definitely recommend.
Yeah, for sure.
And our last category is television shows. I feel like we haven't had a lot of time lately to watch films. So we've definitely been kind of winding down with like a show in the evenings after a long work day. And there's been a lot of queer stuff that we've been loving. So first, obviously, Queer Eye, the new season, season 6 came out this year. We burned through it really quickly. It's such a wonderful show. It's so heartwarming. Like, I can't even explain it if you've never seen it before. It's queer, but it's also just like, I feel like anyone would really enjoy it. It's just, I don't know, it just gets you right in the...
It's a feel-good show, for sure.
It really is. So definitely recommend that.
And then an offshoot of Queer Eye, of course, is Getting Curious with JVN.
Yes.
So that one is very fun. And like, yeah, just kind of quirky and like a fun little easy wind down show, but they go around and talk to experts in different fields about things like bugs and sugar, and it's cute. It's definitely cute, and it's definitely very queer, so highly recommend that as well. Yeah,
there's one episode all about gender identity, which I think was really well done and just showed kind of a lot of perspectives that a lot of people may not have heard before, so definitely recommend that episode in particular. But yeah, it's a great show. Hopefully they do more seasons.
To switch gears completely from comedy to not. Euphoria has obviously been one of our favorites. It is a heavy show.
Yeah.
So big disclaimer, if you haven't seen it, it is a lot. And it's intense.
It is intense.
But it is so well done.
And super queer.
Super queer.
Season 2 came out this year. And when we started watching it, I was like, oh my God, I forgot like how intense this show is. It's like I need a break afterward. It's just so much. And this season was like even more.
Yeah. They got into a lot and really like dug quite deep into the backstories of a lot of the characters. And, which is always super interesting because like learning characters' motivation, I mean, so much of that comes from their backstory, and it's often things that you don't ever find out. But the show did a really good job of kind of getting back into those stories.
Totally.
Yeah, highly recommend. It's also just shot beautifully. They did this entire season on film, so it has a really interesting look. And they also do these really long takes that are just like perfectly choreographed and like, I don't know, if you are like me and like to watch out for things like that, like definitely pay attention to this show because it is like a masterclass.
It's so different than anything else.
It's so well done.
Yeah. And just great representation, great queer representation, trans representation, everything. So if you can handle it, I definitely recommend. But start with season 1.
Yeah.
Okay, next for TV shows. I didn't know if we were going to watch this or even like it, and just like that, the spinoff of Sex and the City, which, I mean, ultimately we were going to watch it.
I think we had to. Even if we kind of like hate watched it, we were going to watch it.
Yeah, and then in the beginning we were both kind of like, I feel like queer things are going to happen, so like now we have to keep watching it. So we stuck out the whole season, and while there were many things I did not enjoy, it was super queer, which for a spinoff of Sex and the City, a show that was like very not queer, it was like pretty cool to see some queer storylines.
Yeah.
Like primary stories, like important, you know.
Yeah. The only queer representation from the original series was, of course, Stanford and Anthony, and then also there was like a brief moment where Samantha dated a woman, but it was very much done in like a mocking way, and I definitely didn't feel like they did a great job with that.
They actually all in the original series had like queer moments and queer stories that none of them were done well. Samantha dated a woman once.
The Alanis Morissette cameo, the bisexual boyfriend that Carrie had, like
and
that was
weirded out
really
about
poorly
it.
done.
But then her and Alanis Morissette kissed, so that was great. And then Miranda was like mistaken for a lesbian by her boss, but then like pretended to be like there were so many.
And then Charlotte encountered the power lesbians, who actually like kind of made a comeback into this series. There was a little nod to the power lesbians in a gallery setting, so something to keep an eye out for.
I didn't know that, But yeah, all those stories in the original were like not very well done.
They weren't very
Again,
well done.
a product of its time, right? Yeah. But I was really interested to see how they would take those characters and bring them into, you know, present day and like see how they would deal with just kind of like current issues. And like, it wasn't perfect by any means, but I don't know.
They made an effort.
they definitely made an effort. Sarah Ramirez, I love.
Yeah.
They were amazing. I really appreciated their storyline, even though I feel like the internet hated it for the most part.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, I do. People are just like super queer-phobic and racist, and obviously, but I thought I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. So again, if it's your thing, like, watch it. If you weren't into Sex and the City, or you might not. You might not care. Yeah.
Choice is yours.
Yeah.
Another great TV show that has been so queer lately is SNL. I mean, obviously Kate McKinnon makes that show super queer all the time, but they've really been tapping into the queerness of their hosts lately, which is so fun. So of course, Ariana DeBose, she is openly queer, and she hosted earlier in the year. She was so good, and so many of the sketches, it was like
they did a hilarious
almost every sketch was like Ariana and Kate, and like everything was so queer, and I was so happy.
Same with Zoe Kravitz, who was just on. Her episode was like really
very
really
queer.
Funny. I feel like I was just leaning into it, and I really appreciate it. It's just been really funny. So highly recommend. Obviously not every episode is a winner, but there's been some good ones. Even Weekend Update did a lesbian joke that was really funny. So highly recommend.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of other like funny light shows, How I Met Your Father, which is a spin-off of How I Met Your Mother, which we did watch at the time, has come out recently, and I love that they've included a lesbian character in like the core cast, like the core group of friends. Especially seeing queer representation like that in like a sitcom format, I think is really fun, because the original show and like all shows like that, you just never would have seen that. There never would have been a gay character in like the core group of friends. So I think they've done a pretty good job.
Well, that's a funny thing, because there aren't very many sitcoms now. So even just seeing queer representation in a sitcom, it almost makes you feel like you're in the like 90s or 2000s,
It's
early
like
2000s, and it's like,
for sure.
Oh, this is refreshing. But I mean, disclaimer for me anyway, the show isn't great.
No.
But
I appreciate.
But it is fun having
the one character. She's it's well written. It's the character is good. We've had some like queer moments. It's not just like, oh, she happens to be a lesbian, but we never talk about it. Like, you see her like going out and trying to date in like the New York scene, and like they're definitely trying. And again, just being able to see it in that sitcom, like old school sitcom format, I think is cool, because it does kind of make you think, like, what if we'd had this back in the 90s or the 2000s?
That would have been hugely helpful, I know, for me.
Right? Like, what if just like these classic sitcoms that we all watched, what if they had just like a gay character, and it was like they were gay and no one cared, and it was just like part of the friend group. Like, I don't know, it's just kind of cool.
Instead of just making gay jokes all the time.
Exactly.
What a concept.
Exactly. So anyways, it's a cute show. The first season's ended now. And it's nothing spectacular, but I mean, it's cute, it's lighthearted, whatever, and there's a lesbian on it, so, I have to mention it. Okay, this next show is so queer, it like doesn't even know what to do with itself. Killing Eve. It's like the entire undertone of the show is just like queer. It's awesome. It's such a good show. It's very intense. There's like, I watch a lot of it. Like Steph, tell me when it's over. Like, it can be pretty gruesome. It can be pretty it's a lot. But it's so queer. It's like season 4 now, I think. And the two main characters, like Sandra Oh is incredible, obviously. Jodie Comer is like insanely talented. The two of them are just so good. And like their two characters just like have this thing, and even though like you would never want to root for them getting together because it would be really messed up, you can't help but hope that they get together. And every episode I'm just like, is it gonna happen? Is it gonna happen now? Like, I don't know. It's really well done. It's such a good show. So
definitely
season 4.
Highly recommend that one.
And start from the beginning if you haven't watched it all. Watch the whole thing.
Important.
Catch up season 4. It's very good. Okay, last but definitely not least on my list.
Not on mine.
Steph's not as much of a fan. But Riverdale, I have to just talk about Riverdale for a second. Mostly because it's coming back this week, and I love it so much. We started watching it because it's filmed in Vancouver, which I love. This is like season 6 or something, I want to say.
Feels like season 10. It feels like there are so many episodes.
There are, they're long seasons for sure. So it's like a big commitment if you want to get into it. But it is super queer. There are a lot of gay characters, and again, for a show that's like a teen kind of drama, you know what I mean? Like, it's pretty impressive, honestly, seeing what they've done, and specifically for like queer women characters. They've really explored a lot, not just like surface level storylines of like, oh, and then one of the friends happens to be gay. Like, they've done a lot, and specifically for like the women characters. I don't know, I can't help but love it. I know that you're not as into it, but I'm obsessed with it.
I'll watch it with her in solidarity.
But like, it's pretty good. They do a pretty good job. Like, you have to admit they do a pretty good job.
Okay, so those are some of the queer things we've been loving this year so far, and we want to know what you've been loving. So leave a comment below and tell us. It could be a book, it could be a podcast, it could be a movie, it could be whatever. Just if it's queer and you love it, tell us.
Yeah, we're always looking for more recommendations of things to watch, listen to, read, anything like that. So leave them in the comments below. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, because I would love to do more like this.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do this every couple months.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
All the queer things we've been loving.
And then we just have to watch and listen to and read more queer things.
Which is always the goal anyway. So that would be perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, let us know, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much for watching. Theo says bye.
Theo says bye. Theo says please subscribe so you can catch all of our videos.
Hi, cutie. All right, we will see you next time.
Bye.